But now you disappeared. That drives me nuts. Okay, there you are. Hi. Okay, so today we're going to talk about winter outdoor play for children and their grown-ups. My name is Kyla Perlman. I work for the Child Health Promotion Program. I primarily work on healthy eating and active living trainings for childcare, both virtually and in person. Call me if you want an in-person training. We'd love to see your faces in real life. And yeah, that's what we're talking about today. Here we go. All right. So go ahead, excuse me, in the chat, put your name, your position. I'm always interested who the folks are who are joining us, and then your email address so that I can follow up with you. In the past, I've just tried to, figure out your email addresses, and sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. So let's just make it easy and put everybody in there.
And best if you can do it all in one message, your name, program, and email all together in one chat.
Thanks for being organized, Tori. I like that. All right. So I usually talk about my sources at the end of a presentation, but I have to tell you, usually when Tori and I are doing presentations, we are using material we already have. We're tweaking something to make it more relevant to the group or the time and place. And this time I really started from scratch. So I relied much more heavily on some of my sources than I have in the past. So I just wanted to put that out up front, and I will go into more detail about all of them throughout the presentation. But most of what you're going to see I got from Winter Kids or the Early Childhood Health Outdoors, and then some other stuff from Active for Life and Children in Nature Network. And again, I'll tell you more about them a little bit later. Okay. In the chat, after you put in your name, your position, and your email, let me know how you feel about winter. Are you the happy snowman, as I envision Tori to be? Or are you the sad snowman, which I am always trying to combat in myself? So I just have a confession to make that I don't love winter. I do love the feeling I get when I go outside and I'm active and get fresh air. And I know that sunshine and fresh air is good for me. And so I do it anyway. And I always feel better after I do that. But my initial response is sad snowman. So I just want to put that out there that it's okay if you're a sad snowman or a happy snowman. We're all welcome here. And all of this will be relevant for everyone, I hope. Amy, happy to play, sad to drive. Okay, that's an excellent point. Ooh, we got some happy. We got I love winter. Well, this might be easy for you guys, but I thought this was just going to be really tough. Judy likes winter, and especially the snowfall. Jane's with Ren. Well, maybe that's why you all are here today, because you are already happy to talk about winter. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna have lots of chat. Sorry, Tori, this is gonna be a lot of like managing what's going on in the chat for you. But what was your favorite outdoor activity in the winter as a child, and then what's your current favorite outdoor activity? And I was trying to think back. I lived in Oklahoma. We didn't get a lot of snow. We'd usually get like once or twice a year. We'd get like a foot of snow, and the rest of the time it was sort of freezing rain and sleet and stuff. So not the greatest for outdoors, or it was, felt like fall. Anyway, when we did get snow, I really enjoyed building snowmen. And we didn't have a hill, but I remember my mom would just pull me around on a sled on a flat surface. And I thought that was super fun. I'm sure she really enjoyed that. And then now, besides going out and hiking or walking whenever I can, I really like to cross country ski when that's a possibility. So it looks like, since you're all winter lovers, ice skating. I have never been able to accomplish that, I'll tell you, but I guess I could always start something new. I could learn something new, right? That's great. Snow forts. Oh my gosh, so fun. Sledding and skiing, going for a walk. Mandy's a child, enjoyed snow huts. As an adult, enjoys snowshoeing, hiking, and skiing. Yep, all good stuff. Skiing. Down the neighbor's hill skiing. Downhill skiing with the neighbors. Building snow huts. Sleigh rides? Oh, that's amazing. That's like a picture postcard winter experience. And then seeing the snow glitter. Yes, it is definitely pretty, at least the first day or two after it snows, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, some of you were here in, I think October is when I did the movement and learning in nature. So some of this will sound like what you've heard before, but I actually initially had children need nature all year long, and then I think in paying attention to the title of the presentation that this is about children and their grown-ups, we know that people need nature all year long. So I'm going to go a little bit about nature that you may have heard in October, but it's a good reminder for us all. So children are spending about half as much time outdoors today as they did 20 years ago. Children who play outside, we know, are more physically active, more creative in their play, and less aggressive and show better concentration. And also that the most direct route for caring for the environment as an adult is participating in wild nature activities before the age of 11. So if we want to raise kids who care about the environment, getting them excited about being in nature now is really important. So nature can improve health and well-being. We know that kids are more active when they're outdoors. Studies show that about 17% of the time spent outdoors is in really vigorous movement, which we really want kids to be really getting their heart rate going and breathing harder and sweating a little bit. That's really the kind of physical activity we want them to be getting regularly. So they're more likely to get that vigorous movement when they're outdoors, compared to only about 1% of the time when they're indoors is that vigorous movement. We know that being outdoors in nature supports gross motor skills, may boost the immune system, particularly in cold weather, which I find interesting. Improved eyesight and vitamin D levels. It encourages healthy eating. You may notice that the children that you're around are more hungry and willing to try new foods, maybe if they've been outside and running around quite a bit before that. Stress reduction, and keep moving my mouse and it's messing me up. All right. Some more benefits, because you can't have too many benefits to nature. Promotes cognitive development, and nature in general, but specifically when we talk about cold and snow, you have the opportunity to encounter new challenges and master new challenges and learn appropriate risk taking. And when we look at children that are a little bit older, we see improved academic performance and lessens ADHD symptoms, promotes self-confidence, improved behavior, self-regulation, communication, and coping skills. Have I convinced you yet? All right. Now that all sounds good, but what about in winter? Do we still have to go outside in the winter? So some benefits of time in nature in the winter. We grow more resilient when we learn to manage challenging conditions. We use our muscles differently. Probably any of you who have gone skiing or snowshoeing lately have recognized that, oh, those are muscles I haven't used in a long time, and now they're screaming at me after you do your first ski of the year or your first snowshoe of the year. There's evidence that kids who spend time outdoors get sick less often. This can be because being in the cold can trigger the immune system to be more responsive. And also we know that if you're indoors, you're more likely to be exposed to more germs. Snow is great for creativity, and it's an opportunity to discover nature in a new season. Yes, unique opportunities to explore and observe the world things look different, feel different, act different in the winter, right? And then we know sunlight, vitamin D are important for everybody. And I think particularly adults around their mental health and any sort of, people I get sadder in the wintertime because it's dark and I don't go outside enough and all of these things. So getting exposure to sunlight, getting exposure to fresh air and vitamin D is really key for not only physical health, but mental health. All right, how to play outdoors in the winter. We're going to go into a little bit of detail on all of these topics, but these are sort of the main things we're going to talk about is addressing the challenges, because we know that going outside is a bit more of a challenge in the winter. It's not as easy just opening the door and letting people out. Like, it takes a little more planning for time outdoors. Creating choices for play. So if the play structure is covered in snow, what are some other options, right? So we have to think about those things through a little bit more. Involving families, as I know you're always trying to do. Being consistent, utilizing nature in your outdoor play, and being a role model as a caregiver. So addressing challenges, we know that we need to take the time to address the challenges, just being like, ugh, this is so much harder, or pretending like they don't exist. Either one of those isn't really going to work. So really engaging with your teachers, your staff around what are the existing challenges and maybe brainstorming ways to overcome some of those challenges, develop some strategies, and then to look at those challenges as a learning opportunity, both for teachers, but also for children, and an opportunity to also teach, right? Learning and teaching. So as kids are learning how to put on their mittens and their boots, being able to help and show other children how to do that as well. You want to plan for your time outdoors. Unstructured play is great. We love unstructured play, have lots of unstructured play. We also know that that doesn't always get kids as physically active as we want them to be all of the time. And it doesn't engage, children are going to engage in different ways, right? Some are going to jump right in and run around and be the leader of the pack, and others are going to hang back and observe. So having some intentional learning experiences is really important, just like you plan your activities throughout the day inside, you would also want to do that outside. Again, we're going to go into more depth on these in a little bit. Okay. Creating choices for play. So similar to having indoors, you have a dramatic play area and a sensory table and an art area and a construction area. You can do the same thing outside in winter or not in winter. All of those things are great to have outdoors as well. So you can recreate similar stations and learning centers like you would indoors. And we know that children are more engaged in play and can sustain play for longer periods of time if they have options. Involve families. So I think it's really important to set those expectations with families about outdoor play. I was actually just on a training last week about winter outdoor play with a bunch of people from South Texas. And the ideas that people have in South Texas about what's too cold to go outside and play is very different, I think, than what we do here. And the opportunity to engage with families and educate them about the value of going outside in all temperatures. And some of your families are going to have no problem sending kids outside in all temperatures, but I think especially folks who come from different parts of the country or different countries, different cultures may have different traditions around what's appropriate when going outside or not. So just making it clear to families that they should expect their children to be outside every day, that they should send their children to school with the appropriate clothing. And that doesn't apply to me as the mother of 2 third graders who refuse to wear pants. But if I were still dressing them when they were 3 years old, I would really try to make sure that they had all of the gear that they needed. And if possible, having backup options for kids at school. So going to that local thrift store or soliciting donations from families to have backup boots and gloves and hats and things for kids who don't have those options that aren't able to bring them from home or forget them at home. Does anybody do that? Do you have like sort of a backup stash of winter clothes for kiddos? Yeah, that's good. And then again, assuring if families are concerned, like educating them, and I think there's a perception that cold weather causes illness in a lot of ways. So really trying to dispel those myths with families, however it is that you normally communicate with families, and assuring kids that you're going to keep them warm and dry, and that they're going to come in and you're going to change their clothes if they're wet, and they're going to be okay. So I don't know how much of that is a big deal for you all and the families that you work with. But it seems to be a big deal in some places. All right, so maintain your consistency. So again, setting those expectations that you go outside every day, and you go outside every day at the same times that you go outside in the summer, and you go outside for the same amount of time that you go out in the summer. So maintaining those routines are important for the families and for the kids, and probably for teachers as well, right? To know what the expectations are and to get out there and be consistent. and whatever your transition routines are when you go outside, same kind of idea. And then knowing and sharing information about the weather with those families and with your teachers that, yes, today is a day we're going to go outside. And we'll talk about when it's actually too cold to go out. I think this is the most fun part. Utilize nature when you're outside. So there are certain learning opportunities you can only see in winter, like snow, animal tracks in snow, lifting snow, moving snow. Even if it's not snowing, looking out at bare trees and the kinds of animals. You know what I see all the time are nests in trees that I never see them in the summer because they're covered in leaves, so you never see them. But then when the leaves are gone, you can see bird nests in trees or squirrel nests in trees. And sometimes it's also easier to see birds in trees or squirrels because they're not hidden by leaves. So those are just a couple of examples of how engaging kids in the winter would be different than engaging them in the summer. And just, capitalize on children's curiosity about the natural world and create your learning experiences around that. Right. And be a role model. And again, it sounds like everybody on this call has a really great attitude about winter, so this must not be too hard for you. But role modeling the proper winter attire and behaviors, engaging in play with children when you are outside. I mean, this woman's having a blast. I wish I felt like that every time I went outside, but maybe I can. Maybe I can. Showing curiosity and encouraging children to observe the natural world. All year long, you're showing children how to be active and healthy, and that being active and healthy is a fun and rewarding lifestyle. I have a stretch break. I know it's a little early, but let's stand up just for a second. Because being a role model, I don't want you all to sit in front of your computer for a full hour and not get up and move around a little bit. We know that even just a few minutes of movement every 30 minutes or so really does make a difference. And if you're in the classroom with kids all day long, you're probably moving a fair amount. But if you are, like I am, in a office most of my day, I have to make sure that I plan that time to get up and move around a little bit. All right, I'm going to see if I can find my toes and then I'll come back. All right, you all can absolutely stay standing or moving, whatever you want to do. I'm going to keep going here. Are there any questions? Let's see. Carla says they have mittens and hats as backup. Susan says, yes, we have a lot of backup items. So that's great that you all are prepared. All right, so now's another chat opportunity. And you can unmute as well if you would prefer to talk instead of just write in the chat. But what are some of the challenges that you do experience getting kids outside in the winter time?
I can speak. This is Tori. I have my youngest just turning 2. I can tell you that this winter has been a little more challenging with her age. Just she doesn't want to ever wear mittens or a hat, and so, or if she wears them, puts them on, she'll take them off. And so I'm sure I know that's happening in classrooms, although you all are so great at keeping that consistency. And I think in the group mentality, sometimes that can be different, but her hands get cold after a while. So then, even if she will put them back on, it's either warming up your hands or it's going inside to warm up for a little bit. So yeah, that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you want to say, these are the natural consequences, Noelle. And also she's 2, so it's hard to always do that, right? Okay, let's see what folks are saying. It's wet on the playground. I get that because, a lot of the things we're going to talk about are related to snow, and sometimes it's easier to play outside when there's a bunch of snow to play in. But when it's wet or muddy or slushy or icy, sometimes it's a little harder. The winter kids, organization that I'm going to talk with you about a little bit more, they have a whole curriculum, and the last couple of weeks of their curriculum are actually the transition to spring and how to come out of a winter season into a muddy season. So a lot of the resources there are also helpful, even in the middle of winter here, where we might have a really, really cold day followed by a few warm days, and we have to go back and forth a lot. Yeah. Okay, Susan says it's hard for the smallest toddlers to stay out for very long when it's under 20 degrees. Yeah. Um, the time to get dressed and undressed versus the time actually spent playing. Yes, Amy, that is my primary. Actually, tell me if this is the, like, I guess if you have a lot of backups, but being able to find two mittens or two that are a left and a right at the same time is kind of a miracle, right? If you can find two that match or two of the right boots. And so yes, you spend a
Target
lot of
just
time.
started selling 6-packs of mittens instead of just 2. Brilliant.
Yes. Always over purchase or over find, however you find your clothing. You're never going to regret having extra mittens, right? Okay. Carla says, similar to adults, some kiddos may not like the snow and will stand stiff, refusing to play because it's too cold. Yes. So kind of just sort of the general attitude, right, around winter or approaching something different or new. Absolutely. Ren says, so many parents don't send appropriate clothing. Yeah. Yeah. Snow is way easier than wet. I agree. And buying lots of extra hats and gloves for teachers as well. That's a great idea, Susan. And we're going to talk about, what's my next slide? Oh, not yet. We're going to talk about in a second. But making sure that, oh, hold on. Okay. Making sure that the teachers are comfortable as well, that they know how to dress appropriately, that they have the resources that they need. And one thing that I am always perpetually guilty of is assuming that the weather is actually going to be nicer than it is. And so I don't dress warm enough, and then I'm really miserable. So what I need to do is just embrace that I need to be wearing my snow pants and my snow gear and my boots and all of that. Because even though it's kind of a hassle, then I'll definitely stay warm and I'll probably enjoy my time a little bit more. All right, well, some other things, let's see what we'll talk about. If you have more challenges, go ahead and add them to the list. I'm curious what you're dealing with. So going out in winter can be challenging. These are sort of some common complaints that we're going to address in more detail. It's too cold. It's too much hassle. There's nothing to do. And I hate winter. All right, it's too cold. So we know that the first thing about it's too cold is invest in good quality clothing when you can, wearing the right types of clothes, the right number of layers, hats and gloves that are waterproof if possible, having those waterproof boots. And as we've already talked about, communicating with families about what's appropriate and probably reminding them a lot. But then also having some of those backups for the kids who can't or won't, for whatever reason, come prepared. Choosing function over fashion. I think, the little cat earmuffs are super cute, but they may not keep a child as warm as a full hat, right? Yes, so wear the right clothes. Close up the openings where snow can get in and or escape heat. So my husband MacGyver's duct tape around my children's the bottom of their pants where they connect to their boots, because they, no matter what, they're always getting the pants are getting pushed up, and then there's snow getting in their boots. So we duct tape the pants around the bottom of the boots. Maybe that's not appropriate for childcare, but thinking about how do we make sure that we have all of the openings are closed as well as possible to prevent snow getting in or cold air getting in or heat escaping. And that might be wrists or scarves around necks, things like that. Not scarves. There's probably an appropriate childcare item for necks that I'm not aware of. We also want to apply protective lotions, lip balms, sunscreen. So sunscreen when you're going out, I know, and especially you guys are washing your hands and children's hands constantly all day long and getting those chapped raw hands. So I know children are supposed to bring their own lotions, I believe, to school, but when possible, having that as an option as well. Keeping tissues handy because, you know, even when you're not sick, going out in the cold, you get a little dribbly nose. And then sunglasses when possible, especially on those really sunny days. It's important to have some sunglasses on. It's too much hassle. So I know you're already keeping clothes in a designated cubby or a hook for each child. Talking about having backup clothes again. Helping kids get dressed independently, which I know you're doing all the time anyway, and that varies depending on the age of the child, but that's something that you're teaching them all the way along. And this is just another opportunity to really help them learn to dress themselves appropriate or dress themselves independently. It helps to have visuals, especially in the wintertime, as far as like what goes on first. Like you want to put your snow pants on before you put your boots on, you want to put your hats on before you put your gloves on. So having some sort of visual with that's numbered, like the order of when you want to do things. Making it comfortable for adults too, we talked about, and creating a drying system that works for your space. Because a lot of times kids are going to come in, whether it's actually snowy or just wet out, right? We talked about, you know, those in between times, like today it's really slushy and wet. So kids are going to come in muddy and wet. And so what are you going to do with those clothes to hang them up to dry? And do they have another set of clothes to go out for the next recess while their wet clothes dry? So any of your brilliant ideas throughout this whole presentation, any brilliant ideas you have that really work for your program, please let us know because we're here to learn from you. So a little more about helping kids dress independently. So just allowing plenty of time. Let them teach and help each other. I know my kids learned the flip a coat over your head trick when they were little, which was a game changer for us. We do know that mittens are warmer than gloves, so if that's possible, either encouraging parents to send mittens or make sure that that's what you're trying to get from the thrift store or the donations that you're getting. Having a bench for kids to sit down on to deal with their boots. We talked about a flow chart with photos for sequential ordering. And then does anyone have a winter getting dressed song that they would like to sing for us right now? Because I have a couple, but I don't think you want me to sing. I want a boot dryer, Susan. That's amazing. Does anyone have a winter getting dressed song? Or are you going to make me sing? Okay, so this is the one that I thought was most fun, was to the tune of Frere Jacques. Snow pants first, then your boots, then your boots. Put your jacket on, hat, then mittens, hat, then mittens. Applause. Also to head, shoulders, knees, and toes, you could do boots, coat, hat, gloves. And then to this is the way we wash our hands. You say, this is the way we put on our mittens, put on our mittens, put on our mittens. This is the way we put on our mittens before we go outside. Thank you, Mandy. So all of those really brilliant things that you're doing with kids every day to keep them engaged, just add a little winter flavor to it. All right, so the next challenge is the idea that there's nothing to do outside. So that's not true. We know that here's some ideas: a winter obstacle course, blowing ice bubbles, playing frozen freeze tag, which sounds really fun, having a winter scavenger hunt, like it shows here, and looking for all of these things on your hike. Also a treasure hunt. Sometimes it's fun to bury items in the snow and then have kids go out and look for them. Taking any sort of snowy walk. As I mentioned earlier, finding birds is easier. Bird watching is easier when there's no leaves on the trees. Building a snow fort, natural construction with snow, sticks and rocks, whatever natural materials you have on your playground. Snowball target shoot. So not snowball fight, but maybe you create some sort of target on your fence or on the side of the wall of your building, and encourage kids to throw snowballs at the target. I also want all of your ideas about your favorite activities in the chat. And I'm going to go into some detail on these games. The seasonal sort game, Everyone Run to the Bear, Observe Animal Tracks, and Snow Bucket Relay that I got from Winter Kids. So Winter Kids is a nonprofit in Maine dedicated exclusively to increasing outdoor physical activity in children and families during our longest, most sedentary season. So, you know, I'm making fun of the people in South Texas for what they think is cold, but those Mainers and Canadians are totally making fun of me for what I think is cold. So I got a lot of, I got all of these activity ideas and a lot of other ideas from their Learn Outside guide, and I use the 2018 edition. They're working on creating a new edition. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but you can go to their website and sign up for updates for when they have their new edition coming out. But it's like a whole binder that includes an 8-week curriculum, a weekly planner, and activity descriptions. And I'm going to focus on the physical activity descriptions today because that's what I'm focused on is movement and activity. But there are activities related to science, math, social studies, art, and literacy. And they have a really extensive book list for how to incorporate, to just talk about winter. So they're all like winter topics, but connected to all of these other learning dynamics. There's also an online training to use the guide, which I watched. And I think it does cost something. They have an elementary school guide that's already up, and it costs $10 for the elementary school guide. So I'm sure that it'll be something similar for the early childhood guide. So that's where I'm getting these ideas. Let's see. Susan likes to look at people and animal tracks in the snow. Excellent. Carla likes to tie-dye snow and snow painting using food coloring and water and squirt bottles. Smaller versions of the ketchup bottles. That sounds super fun. So yeah, absolutely taking advantage of a material that you don't have in the summertime, right? So you can do a totally different kind of art project. Okay, we'll start with the seasonal sort game. So for the seasonal sort game, prior to going outside, introduce the warm and cold weather items to the children. So you would just collect a whole bunch of summer clothes and winter clothes and gear and explain what they are and why you use them and which ones go with warm weather and which ones go with winter weather. And then you explain to the children that you're going to be playing a sorting game when they're outside. So the idea is you place the container with all of your clothing items on one side of the playground, and then 2 containers, empty containers on the other side of the playground, one that has a cold weather sign and one that has a warm weather sign on it. And children will line up and grab an item from the unmarked container, run to the other side of the playground, and put their item in the container marked warm weather or cold weather, depending on what they have. So if they have a mitten, they're going to put it in the winter. If they have, you know, a tank top, they're going to put it in the summer clothes or swimsuit or something. That's the idea. So you want to encourage the children waiting in line to keep moving to stay warm. Maybe they're hopping or marching in place or spinning around, whatever, to keep them moving and warm. So that was one idea that Winter Kids had, which I thought was kind of fun. Everyone Run to the Bear. So for this one, and on the Winter Kids site, they have a whole part of their curriculum is around hibernating animals and migrating animals. And so the idea is to print out pictures of hibernating animals like a bear or a frog or a bat, and laminate those signs, put them up on the fence outside or put them up on trees outside or on the play structure, wherever is a good place to put it. And then you line all the children up and have them run when you call the animal. So if I say run to the bear, then everyone would run to the bear. Or maybe I say hop to the frog, and everyone would hop to the frog. Something like that. So you can mix it up with run or hop or skip to different animals to get them both learning about animals and being physically active in the winter. Observing animal tracks, which I'm sure you're already doing a little bit. But this is an easy one to do when you take children on a walk around the schoolyard or around the neighborhood or to a park to look for animal tracks. They suggest looking near trees, at the edge of wooded areas, or under bird feeders for fresh tracks in the snow. And then encourage the children to share their observations, like what kind of animal do they think these tracks are from? And you can download a animal track document from the internet where it'll show you this is what a squirrel tracks or bird tracks or deer tracks look like. So you could do that too. What do you think the animal was doing? Where was it going and why? And then the snow bucket relay. So with the snow bucket relay, we're going to use buckets again, one on either end of the playground. You're going to encourage children to make snowballs on, you place the buckets on one side of the playground. You have the children on the other side of the playground making snowballs. And then they're going to run back and forth from their snowball pile to the bucket to fill up the bucket with snowballs. Now, if your snow isn't sticky enough, they suggest using like paper cups or something to fill up a cup with snow and then run and dump it in the bucket. So just another idea. So those are just a handful of ideas. What are your other favorite ideas for keeping kids physically active in the winter? Shoveling snow. I love that. Because then, well, it depends. Maybe they're being useful, maybe they're not. But either way, they're getting their physical activity. And again, even thinking about lifting snow, they're using their bodies in a different way. The weight in the shovel is something that probably, if they're playing with shovels other times of the year, they're not getting. Kids love the shovels. Yeah, so thinking about using tools or toys that you're using throughout the year, but using in a different way in the winter. Or maybe you're bringing out new items in the winter that you don't have the rest of the year, like sleds, for example. And it does seem like a lot of the things that you might be doing in the summer, you can also do in the winter with just some modifications. Like I think I showed a picture of like a bunch of hula hoops on the ground. So creating an obstacle course with hula hoops. One thing that I saw mentioned that was interesting was actually digging a little trough so that you can set the hula hoop upright in it so that kids can go through it while the hula hoop is standing upright, which is harder to do when there's not snow on the ground, but an option. What about just, I hate winter? What do you do about that? So besides making all of your outdoor games really super fun and exciting, like I just described, trying a variety of different sports and games, pulling out those different toys that are specific to winter time, then not, and other activities. And then I saw this and I just thought it was a brilliant idea. And I really want to know what you all think about making returning to coziness a part of your outdoor experience. So having the coming back inside and getting warm and dry being part of the ritual. And what Tori and I were talking about was having a little herbal tea for the children. That might be a fun ritual for them. Or maybe putting on warm socks or wrapping up in a cozy blanket when they come back inside. So I'm curious what you think is really doable in a childcare setting around returning to coziness. Carla, please tell me.
Hi, I wanted to share, just piggyback right off your tea idea. We do have a teacher who would bring these little tiny like camping mugs. And so she would have her basket full with mugs and she would make tea for the kids, and it was unsugared, right? It didn't have unsweetened, it didn't have any sugar or honey. It was just tea. And
Mhm.
so the first time you see the kids trying tea, they're sipping and then they're like, oh, but by the second or third time we're outside on the playground and it's freezing cold, they're like, please, can I have more tea? So it's really sweet and it does work. I've seen it and it's just so cozy to see all the kids come together with a little cup of tea as a tea lover.
I love it. I mean, I'll drink tea all day as I am. So, but that's wonderful that the kids are into that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it could physically warm them up, and also just sort of emotionally, they have an attachment to that warm cup of tea when they come inside from the winter.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yes, Martha, I was just thinking about you and wondering because your children went to a more outdoor oriented preschool when they were growing up, right? And I was just wondering if you had any insights into how they managed winter with the kiddos.
They all had their little, thanks for asking, Kyla. Yeah, we lived in Dresden, Germany, and they all had their little thermos bottles that we would make tea in for them in the morning. And then they had a big backpack with lots of clothes packed in as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Martha. And as we have mentioned many times throughout, being a role model for winter play is really key for kids. So if you are going out there being like, oh, it's cold, when can we go back in? I hate this. That's what the kids are going to pick up on, right? So having that, embracing all of the benefits of being outside and having that great attitude that you usually have when you're working with children around going outside and why it's so great. Okay, sometimes it is too cold to go outside. So this is from the state licensing website around what is too cold. I'm sure you've all seen this. But we know that if it's a calm day, we can go down to about 20 degrees without too many problems. Right? Yeah, if the air temperature is 20 and it's calm, we can go. If there's just like a slight wind chill, depending on the wind chill factor, then you're going to have to make a change. So let's say the air temperature is 20 with the wind chill factor, it would be 13. It would feel like 13. So that's really as low as we want to go with kiddos. And then below that, it's really getting into a dangerous place for kids and for grown-ups. So just make sure that you're checking the temperature, checking the wind chill factor before you're going outside. Okay. Okay, so let's say it is below 20 and the wind is blowing. What are you going to do? So now you want to have a backup plan. Bring nature inside whenever you can. One of the great things about, say, taking that winter walk is having the opportunity to collect some things along the way that maybe you can use as an art project later, or maybe put in your sensory table so that children are still being exposed to winter, still be exposed to nature, even if they're indoors. Bringing even snow into your sensory table so that kids are still experiencing handling snow, even if it's too cold to go outside. And I was thinking about particularly children who might be more hesitant to go outside, hesitant to play in the snow, or worried about the cold. Like even just introducing them to the idea of snow and cold indoors first in like a sensory table kind of experience might help them make that transition to being winter lovers, right? And then we always want to have some indoor gross motor activities planned as well. So that's probably something that you're doing already anyway, but including that as your backup if you can't go outside for some reason. All right, so what do I want you to remember? I want you to remember that physical activity benefits the mind and the body, both for kids and for adults. Nature makes everything better. So all of those physical activity benefits that we see are even enhanced, right, when you're doing that physical activity outside. And in order to deal with winter as a different season, really thinking through making a plan, addressing what those challenges are together as a team, hopefully with everyone in your program, because everyone might have a slightly different perspective on what would work better. Trying new things, trying lots of different things. And caregivers are essential, especially as role modeling and attitude towards winter. And now I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the sources that I use. So I talked to you about Winter Kids, the nonprofit in Maine. So Early Childhood Health Outdoors is part of the National Wildlife Federation, and they're actually headquartered in Denver. They facilitate the creation of nature-based outdoor play settings. They provide support and resources for parents, caregivers, and educators to activate these spaces, meaning you have a space, but how are you using it? So really helping people to use the space and advocating for policies to transform outdoor play and learning best practices and making those best practices common practices. So they focus on landscape design. They actually have landscape architects who can help you think about how to redesign your playground to make it more nature-based. They have lots of professional development. So like I said, I went to a webinar last week about this same topic, and they have those throughout the year about all sorts of nature play topics. And then they have all these great resources on their website about how to actually implement this. So here's an example, this how-to guide. So they have a how-to guide of creating a mud kitchen on your playground. And they have that for how to build an arbor, how to use loose parts, how to use elevated platforms for tables kind of thing. So they have all kinds of great things. And they even, because they're based in Denver, they have a whole guide to how to make sure you're doing this according to licensing requirements. So you're not going to be, if you're like, I don't know if licensing allows that kind of activity or that kind of equipment, they have a whole guide to how to do this and be in compliance with state of Colorado licensing. So I highly recommend them as a source. And then Active for Life is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to helping parents and educators encourage a love of movement in their children so they can develop physically active habits and be healthy, happy, and active for life. They have tons of resources for all kinds of physical activities and age groups. So this is just an example from their website. I searched for activities for 2-year-olds, and these are the different ideas that came up. And then when you click on the more, this is not a live page, but when you click on the more, it gives you like the amount of time it's going to take and the materials you need and step-by-step instructions to do all of the things. So they've got a bunch of really amazing resources as well. And not just for winter, for year-round. And then the Children in Nature Network. This is an international nonprofit founded by Richard Louv, who's the author of The Last Child in the Woods and several other related books. So their mission says that we support and mobilize leaders, educators, activists, practitioners, and parents working to turn the trend of an indoor childhood back out to the benefits of nature and to increase safe and equitable access to the natural world for all. So they're working a bit more on advocacy and policy, both locally, nationally, internationally. They're sort of a clearinghouse of ideas. And they also conduct their own research, but also collect research that has been done around the benefits of nature play and why it's important and how to get it done. So all sorts of great sources that I just want to make sure that you're aware of. I will send you a follow-up email with direct links to these sources and other things that I mentioned. I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for doing all that you do for the children in our community. I'm going to send, with the follow-up email, a survey about this particular training, again, because this is totally brand new. I haven't done a winter outdoor play training before, so I want to know all of your feedback. And then also just a short survey about these virtual trainings that we've been doing that we've been calling training snacks, which I think this is our 8th one this year. And so Tori and Martha and Heather and I are trying to figure out, do we keep doing these? If we do keep doing these, how do we do them? What should we change? So it'll be really important to get your feedback on how you feel about these virtual trainings we've been doing. And then contact us anytime with questions and comments. And don't forget that we do provide free trainings for your program. We can do those in person. We can do those virtual. We love to see you in person and talk to you and all of your staff about all of these topics at the same time. So that's all I have for you today. If you have any other questions, comments, you can type them. You can stay on the line. I'll be here for a few more minutes at least to chat. So thank you so much for being here. And it looks like a beautiful day to get outside. So I hope that after you have sat here for so long, you will get up and go outside and walk around.
Looks like the recording's still going.